Politics 2012 is our segment right now. On the table this morning, we shall be talking about that landmark ruling from yesterday. We shall also be talking about the VAT bill that is, of course, causing a huge scare across the country, and of course that opinion poll that came out recently. And then we shall also be looking at the shiftings and anglings of different politicians, and we shall be telling you where they're headed next. Stay tuned for all of that. Martin Mutua, as always, very good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Even before we go to the biggest story, which of course is being splashed across all the main newspapers, that very important ruling, we were having a chat about the opinion poll, and you've always had the view that, I mean, these things don't have that much of an impact, but all the same, maybe you can just take a very few minutes to glance through these numbers that came out, I believe, that's on the 29th of July. That's just on Saturday, I think Saturday or Sunday. Yeah. So, and for me, what stood out, I don't know what stood out for you, the fact that, of course, you still have ODM as the most well-known party, a favored party in the country, 41%, but TNA, which is just barely even a few months old, has already gone to 12%. What does this tell us? The fact that you can have a brand new party that, just started recruiting people across the country and already at 12%. How does that happen?
Well, I can't, the issue of opinion polling has had issues in the country. You've had politicians complaining that it is the people who are backing these, who are funding the polls are the ones who are calling the shots. Well, I don't want to go that route right now. But, well, for sure, you can understand how, if the virtue that TNA has come into play is that basically you can look at where the major support is. TNA is Uhuru Kenyatta-led. And if you can understand the politics of the country, is that in terms of numbers, the Mount Kenya region tends to lead with the numbers that they are. You have more votes, close to 3 million votes, if it's not over. And the fact that he has now taken over the leadership of that party, it's bound for the support that he's been having to shift towards where he is. So if opinion polling is carried out around that area, definitely they will come into the picture. And that is a situation that you need to look at. So basically, you can tell that the fact that through Mount Kenya, if opinion polling was carried out on who they support, definitely Uhuru Kenyatta would rank in very highly. So that is the situation at the moment. So
it does confirm to us, of course, that things have not changed as such in terms of what informs people's decision. Regional factors still play a very big role.
Exactly. That one until we stabilize in our kind of politics that we engage in. The issue of ethnicity ranks very high, and people backing whoever comes from their region. But I think as time moves on, Kenyans will get out of that hangover and at least realize that issues of ethnicity should not be the ones that are the guiding principle. But for now, our politics, as we can say, they are still polarized through the ethnic mind and the ethnic eye, and it's unfortunate that is the way we've been since independence, but we are slowly gravitating towards that, away from that, because the kind of generation we are having now is sort of cosmopolitan, if you can put it that way, and it's going to change with time, because we also have a new dispensation that we are having and our politics are changing. So with time, I think that is going to be a thing of the past.
What do you think has kept ODM afloat? 41%, that's huge. It's almost similar to the figures they had just before the 2007 general elections. What do you think has kept them afloat?
Well, ODM has been kept afloat because you realize that they have their own strategy. They've stayed in a particular way. They are structured in a manner that they have not been able to, despite all the challenges that they had people moving out, but they have a clear structure, and they have already had a name of their own. They have a party leader whom the supporters have got acquainted and acknowledged with, and they have realized and they have accepted that Raila Odinga is going to be their presidential candidate. So there is no contest on who is going to be the presidential candidate in ODM. So that is a clear matter that has happened. And you've seen in the recent past, they have also been going around the country in campaigning very highly. And the road shows that they've been carrying out in various parts of the country has also helped them to solidify their support within the grassroots area. So it is something that has kept people together, because their name and their aspirations are well known to Kenyans, as opposed to other parties which are coming up, which do not have those structures and grassroots support. ODM has stayed solid since in the last general election. That's why they have that kind of rating.
What do you have to say to the fact that we've seen, I mean, TNA has not had many, national campaign rallies across the country compared to URP and UDF, which, taking a look at the figures, they're barely featuring. What makes the difference here?
Well, like I said, I would not want to be very. I needed to understand what kind of methodology that team used, the opinion polling have used, so that I can be able to understand how they arrived at those figures. But be that as it may, I think the fact that all these other parties are sprouting up, and their leaders are trying to make inroads wherever they have not been. That issue of ethnicity, there are many other factors that count in terms of how voter appeal comes into play. We've seen how situations have been in the last elections. And there are situations, even the fact that we had post-election violence, and people have this still stigma about what happened. And there are areas where some candidates, if they go there, they would not get the kind of support that other candidates would also get. So there are varied factors depending on how every candidate popularizes themselves across the country. But with time, because we are now getting towards the election proper stretch, and it's only a matter of time so that everything will become clearer, and we'll know for sure whether what they have been campaigning is going to bear fruit in terms of how the next opinion polling will come out. So it's too early to gauge based on the kind of opinion poll we've seen in the last week. So it's good to give the political parties time, and maybe in the next 1-2 months, I think we will have a clearer picture on which way this country is going.
I mean, Martin, something else that people have been keenly observing, the politics of Western Kenya, more than ever, it's really been on the focus on everyone's mind, especially people who are keen political observers, yourself included. And it started off, the alliance that seemed to be forming, of course, the G7 alliance. Eugene Wamalwa seemed to be, the obvious representative of Western Kenya in this particular group, as regional politics would have it. But then comes Musalia Mudavadi. Where does Eugene Wamalwa stand now? We've seen him sending mixed signals of late.
Yes, the entry of Musalia has really complicated Eugene Wamalwa's equation, because initially he had already been touted as a presidential candidate for the Western region. And he had even taken over after, I mean, he was lured by the New Ford Kenya leaders, that is Soita Shitanda and Boni Halwale. And he, at some point, he looked the obvious and the best catch to have for the Western region. But with the entry of Musalia into the scene, that has complicated everything for him. And it seems all the leaders and MPs in Western Province have sort of taken off and abandoned him, and they have all gravitated towards Musalia Mudavadi, whom they feel is a better candidate for them. And that has not sent very good signals to Eugene, and he has become very uncomfortable. Initially, the G7 alliance also, if you noticed, they were very, very tight with Eugene Wamalwa. The Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto, they were all very keen with Eugene, but after Musalia came in, they have all gone sort of silent, and that has sent very shivers across Eugene. And Eugene is
so you have the four members of parliament, two of them most conspicuous, Boni Alwale, Soita Shitanda, who are with him,
yes,
jumping to Musalia, and the rest remaining with the Prime Minister Raila Odinga.
Some are quiet, but majority of them have gravitated towards Mudavadi. I can tell you, it's only the people. Even those within Bungoma in the Bukusu region where Eugene has very strong support. That is Wetangula and Kombo. Those ones have stuck with Eugene, but they have also been sending signals to Mudavadi that they would want to work with him, so that they need to. They're asking him to come to the table so that they can work together. This is informed by the fact that the wave in Western Province, by the way, is gravitating very heavily towards Mudavadi. And now the trickier part comes in when now there have been signals within the Eugene side that he is gravitating now towards Raila Odinga. That if he went that route, then it's going to complicate the equation even further, because the fact that the G7 alliance have been moving away towards forming an alliance so that they can be able to
beat
the Raila Odinga. So when he sends signals that if these fellows don't want me, then it's like he's telling them now, the person that you've been running away from, I'm going to be with him. So that has really sent a lot of shivers around the G7 alliance, and it's bound to cause more rift, and even more, a lot of feathers are going to be ruffled here. So in the event that is what he gets to, then the total equation and the total way Western Province is going to vote might be changed, and it might look very difficult. It might look very different in terms of how the voting patterns are going to be.
And Martin, back to the opinion polls, which you're not very good friends with the opinion polls, but back to them. At least that's the only solid thing we have. What's happening? Does Musalia need more time to get a foothold in Western Kenya? Because the Prime Minister still leads way ahead in this particular region. What's the matrix behind this?
Well, I am not very sure that the Prime Minister would be if he really leads very highly in Western Province compared to Musalia. But if that is the case, then I don't think that the margin would be very, very, very high. And looking at how Musalia has not even been sleeping. I think he's one person who has been hitting the road throughout the week. I've been seeing, even from what we've been capturing, he's on the road every single day, and that has caused worry in almost all the camps, because where do you get a candidate who moves in every part of the country, and while others are not doing anything at all? It shows you that there's something that you need to work out and be able to catch up. Otherwise, with time, you might underrate him, and it turns out that it's the underrating that you're taking is a risk to you.
Thank you very much for bringing up that point, because that's what everybody's talking about. If Musalia is that good in Western, why does he have to keep going back to Western and, of course, Central? In fact, look, yesterday he was in Nyandarua, a bit before that he was in Western, and then just before that he was still in that Mount Kenya region. Why is he spending 90% of his time in these two places?
You see, those are the two rich vote areas that you can deal with. In terms of, first, if there's that perception that basically like Uhuru Kenyatta might not run, that there has been that perception because of the ICC case. But the Uhuru Kenyatta team has said that is all nonsense, and they are in the ballot the whole way. But in terms of,
what's the reality? Are they factoring in that just in case?
That should be the pushing factor for any candidate. I mean, Central Province is a major stakeholder in this election with over 3 million votes. If you have that kind of vote when you go to the polls, you have a head start already, and the others will just be following you. So Central Province is a key factor in terms of how the voting patterns will be. And basically, they believe that the kind of antagonism maybe the Prime Minister has had with people in Central Province is maybe what Musalia is trying to take advantage of, so that he can be able to sell his candidature within that area. And he's also showing that in terms of working relations, he has a better working relationship with Uhuru Kenyatta as opposed to Prime Minister with Uhuru Kenyatta. So basically, he would endear to the supporters of Central Province more than the Prime Minister would. So that's why he wants to take advantage of that particular area. And back to Western Province, he would want to solidify his base first before he moves elsewhere, because once you have your base well secured, then what you need is to add up with the rest of the country.
And what people have been saying is that it might even be the toughest nut to crack, Western Kenya itself, in terms of the geopolitics within that particular region itself.
It will now depend on the kind of alliances that are going to be formed within Western Province. Well, ODM, as you noticed in the last election, they actually did better in Western Province because there was a whole solid unity within the ODM. Musalia was part of ODM, and the wave around there was purely ODM, and you had majority of MPs were all from ODM. So it is a fact that the fact that they've had that kind of good support in Western Province, they cannot. That is not something that they can sort of overlook. So it is important for them to continue ensuring that they keep those bases. But the fact that Musalia has bolted out, and you have these different signals being sent both within the same leadership, is something that is creating a lot of ruffles within the leadership. But Western Province, as you can notice, they've had 2 vice presidents since independence. I mean, 3 vice presidents to say. You've had Mudi Awori, then you had Wamalwa Kijana, almost next, a heartbeat away from the presidency. Then even Musalia himself was a vice president for, I think, 2 months, the shortest vice president we've ever had. So the wake-up call in Western Kenya is that they have had vice presidents. Why their thought is not to have vice president. Now they want to have a stake in the president itself. So that is what is informing all this kind of wave by Mudavadi. Believe you me, if he had not declared that he was going to vie for the presidency, even his political career would have been over.
Okay, I'll just take a look at all the main contenders and look at some of the challenges probably that they face. And you speak to their inside camps, you know some of these people very well, how they plan to overcome that. In fact, let's start with Musalia, then we'll talk about the Prime Minister, the Vice President, and of course we'll talk about William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Martha Karua. The perception has been in some quarters that he's a political project. When you talk to insiders in his camp, how do they say they plan to overcome that particular sort of, challenge? Because within central Kenya, the perception that he could be a project of the current government boosts his ratings, but within other regions it does not necessarily do that. How do they plan to overcome that?
Well, the people, in terms, like I said the other time here, propaganda is part of the election process, and it's acceptable. So any parties in politics, with truth, I don't think you can get anywhere. So with propaganda, you get far. So the opponents can lump him whichever way they want to.
But how do you think his camp plans to deal with that?
Definitely the camp is dealing with it in terms of pushing for the kind of, you've seen the kind of campaign tour they've been pushing around. The kind of movement they've gone, they've tried to go around the country, campaigning heavily to show them that they are. First, what came out is that Musalia had to prove that he's his own man. He's not a person who can be pushed over and be able to to be told what to do. So the fact that he bolted out of ODM was a plus for him to show that he can stand on his own, not on the shackles of the Prime Minister. So, and he moved out, and he has proved, because so far I don't think there's anybody who has moved, who has been campaigning that much like him. And the fact that he's been branded a project, he has also denied that. He has rejected this. He has continued to state that he's gunning for the presidency, and it's the fact that he's been perceived to be a weakling. That has not been the case. And that's why he came up with this notion that he's the new Messi on the ground.
But what about the questions about the party that he chose? Who are the people? You know, people ask such questions. Who registered this party? What was the vision of this party before he joined? Who are these people that he's associated with in this particular party? What are their ideals? They've not had a chance probably to answer that. Do you think they plan to answer that in future?
You see, a political party is just a vehicle you can use for you to gravitate towards your interest. So in terms of, we haven't gotten to the point whereby we have solidified our parties to the extent that political parties are the ones which are guiding our politics. That we have not gotten to. You've seen even Uhuru Kenyatta jumped out of KANU, and he went to form his own TNA. The same thing happened to William Ruto. He jumped out of ODM. He went to form URP. And there are many other parties which are there. So if they felt that they cannot achieve their political interest in a particular party and they can do it in another party, they are free to do so. The fact that these parties have not told us, definitely they need to come out with their manifestos and be able to tell Kenyans what they stand for. What in the event that they are elected, what will be their guiding principle. But for now, because the campaign period has not been officially declared by the IEBC, that is not the time. This is not yet the time for them to state those kind of issues. But the fact that whoever is, anybody can jump into any party in the event that they feel that is where their interests are going to be catered for. So I don't think we need to crucify Musalia because he has moved to UDF. Whoever the party leaders are, or the people who in the party are, I don't think is a question that we need to look at. By the way, you can even, if you look at what happened in the last election when President Kibaki was going to Ghana for the seat, he jumped out of NAC and he went to PNU Alliance, something that we did not even know what it is.
Yeah.
But that is what at that time was the best for him to be able to get to the presidency. If he didn't have anything to stick on and to get to the presidency, he would not have vied for the presidency. If I asked you what does PNU at that time, what did it stand for? Nobody knew. We only knew that the president has this party and he needs to vibe.
Martin, I think I agree with you when you say that, in the country, it's not necessarily viewed as an ideal to pick a party because of its policies and mode. But the difference here in terms of what you're mentioning, and probably even some journalists would ask, joining UDF, he did not form UDF. He joined a party that was already set up. We're not like Uhuru Kenyatta went up and set up TNA himself. It's a party that is started, so we can associate it with Uhuru Kenyatta. But who formed UDF? It's registered under what debacle? What informed its foundation? Don't you think those are valid questions to ask? If he had gone out and formed UDF, probably would have been comfortable. And don't you think these are some of the reasons that people are speculating, and probably the propaganda that you're talking about is working so well, because people wonder, what's the basis of this?
If a person can run on in this country, that is, in other countries things are different. If a person can run in a particular party and win an election, definitely that person becomes almost an institution to that party. He can do anything with whatever he wants with that party, whether he's the one who has formed it or not. And that's why in our politics, with the kind of laws now we've put in place, the Political Parties Act, and the election rules we are having. I think we are moving away from the old system of where we used to have political parties not being the guiding principle, and we will be heading towards a situation whereby political parties are the ones which will be guiding the governance of the country. And that's how in civilized countries things happen, even in the United States and even in the Commonwealth countries. Your political parties are the ones which call the shots. You can see an example of ANC. The ANC decides who will become the president, and they can even remove you from presidency and put somebody else. That is how we need to move our politics towards. But at the moment, like I said, we are in a transition period. We don't have the benefit of this strength to popularize, to have a party stand for itself and be able to be the one deciding on how governance is supposed to be. Because a political party, when it goes to an election, it ought to have a manifesto and a policy to show this is how, because in all over the world, in civilized nations, it is the policies that a party stands for that are the ones which propel it to power.
Oh, yeah.
But as opposed to what we are having here we even have a provision in our current constitution for independent persons can stand on an independent status. So once we move out of this kind of situation we've been having, believe you me, even in the next election, things are going to be different, because the parties themselves will be the ones that will be guiding how the governance of the country are going to be. But for now, since we are in a transition period, all these hiccups are bound to occur. And we will definitely, I'm not saying that we should not interrogate where the presidential candidates are standing for. That is part of the process that we need to do, because as we interrogate these systems, then we provide checks and balances, and we even inform Kenyans on how best a candidate can be able to, if gets to power, we will definitely know what they stand for and what they don't stand for.
Finally, on Musalia, before we move to the Prime Minister and look at some of the challenges he faces, he left ODM on the premise of grassroots elections. No word on UDF so far, unless I'm wrong, as to when they'll do the grassroots, county by county, grassroots nominations for the presidential candidate. He already looks like the de facto leader.